And we paint some bamboo. And we paint some bamboo. And then we paint some more bamboo. It's finally done. I am absolutely ecstatic about it. I really can't wait to show all this off. At the end of all the walkthroughs of all the little cool extra bits and bubbles that are on all the different bases and just little cool accent pieces that they sculpted onto these, do a whole terrain setup with all the war bands and set up a whole table and just kind of run through it. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing to go check out. So sit back, let me know what you think, and I have taken so many takes of this, and I just can't seem to do this without my chickens freaking out in the other side. So if you hear them in the background, I don't know what to say. All right. Getting into this right away, we're starting with the Soulblight Gravelord. They had these 3-foot heroes, or not heroes, foot soldiers that were in it. And I didn't want to do the same pale skin for all of them. So these guys here, I said, let's do more of a tan skin. So you come in, this was Cadian Flesh Shade. Gonna work up through just a couple quick layers of it, but then we're gonna go back into the exact same washes that I was doing on the original ones, where you have this like rich burgundy wash on the core and on the mouth. But then we're gonna come back in and also do that same purple wash over the top part of the face, the head, the arms, so it still has ties into the original one, and I like the way that that really was working out. So I wanted to test it out, see how it worked out with some other skin tones, and as you're going to see here in a little bit, I think it actually turned out really, really well. It does look absolutely weird at this stage with this skin tone, but it's all about how it comes together in the end. So here we go with the final layer. We switch up the mini again to really keep it confusing, but we're just hitting the highlights here. I didn't want to spend a week on each one of these. I just couldn't spend a week on each one of these. This would have never gotten done. So we're cutting back drastically on the different layers, kind of going a little bit more aggressive, but it still worked really well on these guys. You know, picked up all the highlights well. The face had a ton of detail on these models in particular, and really, really liked the way that it came together on these ones. So, almost all these models had a very similar robe set on them. I didn't have the time to spend the 5 or 6 step process to get that pattern that I had on the original one. So I took a different approach to it and said, can I do this in 3 steps max? The answer is yes, but you do get what you pay for, as with most things. I still like the way it turned out. Mission accomplished, you know, I got the results I wanted to get, but when you hold it up side by side with the original one, very obvious of what happened. But in the end, still looks great, especially at the tabletop. As we get to the rest of the Soulblight, this guy here had much more of a hyena look to him than I thought he was going to have originally, but I had a ton of fun painting him. Bringing out the orange in that fabric was really fun to do it on a bigger scale. The ripping of his skin with the flesh bleeding underneath it, and little dog nose, I thought just tied them together. This model had some crazy good movement, so I took some of the same color tones and moved it from that bat down across his fur cloak, through the sword, and into the plants on the base. I just thought that really tied that wet guy together. In the corn models here, this guy just had a lot of really good options to him. He had a really good story that you could kind of build on him. This is one of my favorite models that I did out of this kit. And then the females in this group, I gave a lighter skin tone, but their leather cloth, I made the skin tone of the men to kind of show what maybe they had to do to get to the position that they have. All these little bits of scatter terrain had some really cool, interesting features on them. This one in particular had this really big, cool skull sitting on it. So I wanted to try something a little different than I did on any of the other skulls. This one just kind of read like it had this opportunity. So I took a black and brown, and then I started working in some different layers of this oxide red. And in my head, this was just going to come across as this like burnt brown skull with some really nice stark highlights. It ended up coming off kind of Halloween-y, a little bit like a jack-o'-lantern, but I still really like the way that this turned out. Every time I try a new color combination for skulls and bones, really digging the way that they ended up coming. So this one here, I really like the way it looked, even though it does look like the Pumpkin King. Lots of cool chances for different types of brickwork and working in different colors. So this is just a contrast of a Flesh Terror red, and I'm going to do now some nightshade over different shades of gray to bring out like a granite and worn stone. Use that same nightshade on that red that we had just created. Really just to work up different hues, different values of different stone, but still tie them all together in the end. You know, make up a little bit of a dry brush here. That's I just played around with some of the colors that I used on the bamboo to get this like beigeish shade. That way it's still tied in with all the other pieces too. Even though there was really no bamboo on this one, you set it next to it and you have some common colors. So all this dry brushing, a little bit heavy on it so that it really stood out and popped on the field, because it is one of the smaller pieces on there. That being said though, this piece here just had tons of features onto it. It had tons of life, great movement. I tried using some different colors to paint up those Aztec dinosaur designs on the bottom and gave them this odd yellow contrast paint over top of it. And I just thought it would give it this gold effect without using gold. And the dinosaur heads themselves have a little bit of silver on them. Some lead belcher, and then that contrast yellow over top. Really popped out, really made a different look. Then I thought it should have this like glowing red effect to it. So I took this oxide red that I had used earlier and I just dry brushed it into some of the crevices, and I thought it would give it this glowing effect. I've never tried this before. I don't have an airbrush, but I've seen some similar things done in the past. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement on it, but for what it is, I'm pretty darn happy with it. And let's not forget, these are terrain pieces for Gur, and the land of Gur is alive. That's at least how I read it in my head. So I took some blood for the blood god, and I just made it look like it's pouring out or seeping out of this this light, this glow that's coming inside of some of these rocks. And I did this every chance that I had on this terrain pieces, just to really tie it in, bring it back to even the blades of corn models with all that blood on them, and just show that this is an inhabitable land, that it itself can bleed. Setting up all the terrain pieces now, this was a ton of fun. I haven't had a chance to set up a small board like this in a really long time. And having all the bridges, the ladders, all the connector pieces, the smaller platforms, and the little hideouts really is such a dynamic set. All the minis sat really well on everything. The bridges worked fantastic for the minis to run across them. And I seriously cannot wait to get as many games as I can on this set. I'm going to expand on it, I think, in the future, maybe build a new board for it, but for right now, it's freaking awesome. There we have it. That's the whole thing, the entire Warcry bloodhunt set. Both warbands, all the terrain, except for a couple of pieces that just make walls and block off some of the cool stuff that we built. I love it. There's a lot of little spots on here that show character and allow you to build a story that we kind of looked at. And I'm excited to see what comes out next. The huge leak came out of the Seraphon versus Flesh Eater Court for the final set of this. And the terrain in it looks even more epic than this one. And the Stormcast Eternals in it look absolutely phenomenal. Flesh Eater Courts was hard to tell. We'll see. But this project's all wrapped up for now. Moving on to the next thing. And keep on checking by. And also swing over to TikTok. Check us out. I'm at abuchinanas_Nomio Dilbo, and over on Instagram, abuchinanas_tabletop. All right, on the next one, abuchinanas. Oh, and some nice, sweet B-roll. Smooth shots of the Warcry terrain set.